Hello and welcome to another episode of Crushing Comics. I'm your host Peter and we are here to help me fall in love with my comic book collection all over again. Let's get straight to a new package from the wall. I'm starting to have to pick things from off camera now. That's how far we've gotten in this unwrapping process. As you might see, I'm sporting a new hairdo today. I finally chopped off what was coming back from my curls, which was not going to be sustainable in the Wellington wind, even in the summer, quite windy. And it really made me think about this idea of the little things that keep us alive, right? I've talked already about like finding our pasta sauce and stuff like that in a new place. But have you ever stopped to take an inventory of just how many little kinds of maintenance it takes to like keep you upright and moving and looking and feeling the way you want to feel? Because those things are hard to find sometimes in a new place, but sometimes they're the easiest things to forget when you're not feeling well, right? When you're having like a tough semester at school or a really tough project at work, or you're just feeling crappy. And you know, your self-image is one of those things, and being able to go and get your hair to look like the way that you want it to look is one of those things. And I have only been to one hairstylist for the entire past decade. I guess there's a lot of people like that get super dedicated, but I wasn't just dedicated. I have found that people don't really understand what to do with my hair. I don't always understand what to do with my hair. You've seen that it can be like really big and thick and curly, and that happened quite suddenly. I used to have like a Spock bowl cut. I was called Dr. Spock when I was in middle school. It wasn't like a tease. I actually thought it was cool because I liked Star Trek. And so then I had long hair and a ponytail, but it was super, super straight. And I got it cut and it came back like sprawling in all curls. And I had no idea what to do. And I just thought, oh, well, that's just like that's just the first day. Like it's gonna calm down. Never can calm down. Like we're almost 20 years later and it never calmed down. So I was just thinking about how not only do I have now a different hairdresser or barber here in Wellington, but I have to like find hair care products that work for me and all of these other trickle-down effects. Like I can't get the same razor blades that I got in the United States, but it's not the same to me as that like pasta sauce conundrum, because these are the things that are about me, like it's the things that define me, and I just think it's a really interesting thing to think about, not only for when they change when you move, but like do you even know what those things are? Like if somebody said to you, what are the things that define you that are like exhaustible resources or things that can expire, that you're gonna have to get new things ever? You're gonna think of like your haircut, your shaving cream, your shampoo, and how many of those are actually important? Do you actually care about what kind of shampoo you have? So, I don't know. That's what's been on my mind lately. Oh wow, this is quite a hunk. I'm trying to vary my oh wows, because I notice I do a lot of oh, so we're trying to mix those up a little bit. So, what we opened today, if I can get through explaining all of it, is a whole block of primarily Abnett and Lanning Cosmic Marvel, with Nova here in the front, which actually really belongs with some books that we opened already, and then this whole block of War of Kings, Realm of Kings, Annihilators, and Thanos Imperative, which now have all been collected into omnibus form. So let's start with this Nova book. I actually recently updated on Crushing Crisis my Nova page and kind of came to this realization that perhaps Nova is like the hero that grew the most at Marvel over the last 10 years. It's crazy to think about, but he's just so much more than he was before Annihilation. That's because in Annihilation, they really took him to a place where he was allowed to be an adult. And Marvel struggles with this all of the time, right? Are their heroes allowed to grow and change? We see that if they have kids or get married, then it has to get retconned because they got too grown up and we can't identify them anymore, identify with them anymore. But I think they really hit the sweet spot on Nova by kind of bringing him into space and saying, you've got to be in charge of this thing now. This thing where you were the only Nova and you were a total neophyte, now you're the only Nova, but you are a veteran. And he really comes across as a veteran in Annihilation. He's like leading the forces along with Star-Lord towards the end. And this is the series that started after that. And you'll see that it's branded Annihilation, but really what it is Annihilation Conquest. It's like the third oversized hardcover of Annihilation Conquest that just happens to be the first book of Nova. Now, Marvel never followed this up with more oversized collections of Nova. They were in trade paperback and they were very, very hard to find for a while. But what they've done is they put this into the Annihilation Conquest Omnibus, and then they subsequently collected the whole rest of this series, which is 35 or 36 issues, in the omnibuses that were to follow the War of Kings and the Realm of Kings, which used to just be oversized hardcovers, which I've got in my lap. right here. So I recommend this. Nova, it's fun, it's space in a way that Marvel honestly had not done for a really long time. Marvel's spacefaring heroes it's a slim list. Other than Guardians of the Galaxy, whatever incarnation of them you're talking about, you're basically talking about like Nova, Quasar. I mean, now Marvel has more people in space as a result of these stories, but at the time that this was starting out in 2006, there weren't a lot, and it was really great to see this, and it was a fun read. So now we have War of Kings, which is, I think, probably where I'm going to spend a lot of the time in this episode. I love this story so much. This is the original oversized hardcover of War of Kings. Of course, now it's in this trio of omnibuses, Prelude to, or Road to, I forget what it's called, War of Kings, and then Realm of Kings. And War of Kings was the outgrowth of two separate plot threads. One for the Inhumans that started in the Civil War era of Marvel stories and saw them needing to depart Earth and having a conflict with the Kree and other intergalactic royalty, and then the X-Men thread of a small subset of X-Men following Vulcan into space as he kind of took over the Shi'ar Empire, and the X-Men became really rebels or terrorists in a way that were trying to usurp the Empire, and those two threads come together expertly here. It really just goes to show you how clumsy Marvel is at this stuff these days. Like, they did Inhumans versus X-Men after maybe a year of build-up of basically just saying, the X-Men are dying because of this cloud. The Inhumans don't care. Have a fight. Whereas this was, you would never know in the build-up, which was years in the making, if that X-Men and Inhuman would eventually collide until it got right to the point of this and you were like, oh man, these franchises are headed for a collision. And that's why I love this book and I hate that other story. So it's really good, and it kind of mashes up all these things. It mashes in some Nova, it mashes in Guardians of the Galaxy, it mashes in Inhumans, X-Men, and it's a really, really great read. And if you've read all of the stuff that goes up to it, it's an even greater read because it's so fascinating to see all the threads get pulled together. Now, here's the thing. All of those things were actually not in oversized hardcover. There's a reason that I haven't opened up anything that fits between Conquest and this. They were like a random anthology issue of a X-Men story, this miniseries X-Men Kingbreaker, a couple of Inhuman series, and honestly it was a pain to get it all on yourself. So Marvel put them all in that Prelude to War of Kings omnibus, and that's why that trio of omnibuses are so attractive to me. And when I say I love War of Kings, I don't just love what's in this book, I love the whole lead up to it and all of those plots coming together. So I'm a big fan of that. And then after that comes Realm of Kings. Realm of Kings is kind of like all anticlimax. It's all afterwards. And there's some interesting things that are happening as we kind of see the humans kind of settle into their new role and see this kind of post-Vulcan Empire, but it's been a while since I've read it, honestly, and I read it originally in paperback. I've got it here in hardcover, and I was just like, kind of, Like, after all that build-up, it just wasn't as exciting to me. But it does set up like a pretty big throwdown with Thanos, which plays itself out across, well, this is not so much with Thanos, but then into Thanos Imperative. And this is really like the crest of the Nova plot. Nova's series ends and says, like, you will see Nova next in this. And this does play out some themes that started in War of Kings and really brings the cosmic thread of Marvel to a head. And if you think about the timeline, it had to happen, right? Because we were coming up on not only the first Avengers movie, but Marvel knowing that they were going to put the Guardians of the Galaxy movie into production, and knowing they were going to do these Guardians, and knowing that Brian Bendis was going to be taking over the Guardians franchise after introducing them to the wider readers of Marvel in a book called Avengers Assemble in 2012, which was the first time that we really saw that movie team of Avengers together. And then, of course, to the end of that got added what we now know as the movie team of Guardians of the Galaxy. And we were none the wiser at that point. And in fact, Marvel readers, and I had been a pretty regular Marvel reader for a year or two at that point after my comeback, Marvel readers didn't know who these Guardians of the Galaxy were. Like, it was a popular title, but it was a cult hit. And even all this space stuff was like kind of this cult underdog slept upon part of the Marvel universe that I was only aware of because I'm an X-Men reader. And So that Bendis splash is what introduced the Guardians to everyone. And so Abnett and Lanning had to draw this to a close because Bendis was going to take over, and he does not always share well with others unless he first makes the thing and then he starts sharing it. He's not really good at like coming into somebody else's thing already in progress and sharing with them. Those days are long past, which honestly the guy has earned it. He's been around for a long time and he's created a lot of amazing comic books. So I highly, highly, highly recommend this sequence of books, but I don't really think you should buy it in this sequence anymore. Honestly, it just doesn't make sense. You probably could get them cheaply if you're kind of looking for some bargains here and there, but there's just, the omnibuses make it so much easier to read and so much of an improved reading experience that I can't help but say that's the way that you ought to go, and especially for War of Kings because you want to get the whole story. Now again, as with everything after 2005, this is all on Marvel Unlimited, which is like between $10 and $12 a month right now. So if you're the kind of person who's like, I don't need all this in my house, just pay the $10 or $12 a month. You'll get the chance to read it all end to end in Marvel Unlimited. If you need some help knowing what order to read it in, just come to Crushing Crisis, my blog, because I have the whole Marvel universe to find. I even have, see this guy here? Darkhawk? Where is he? There he is. See Darkhawk? I even just launched a Darkhawk guide for my patrons, and he is pretty obscure. So when I tell you I'm explaining everything, I'm really explaining everything. So now let's have the ceremonial shelving of this big old hunk of Marvel Cosmic. I want them to fit there because that's where they belong, but we're just going to tuck them back here for now. I wasn't thinking about you looking at the back of my head. I don't know what the hair looks like back there. So thank you so much for tuning in to a new episode of Crushing Comics. Please stay tuned as I continue to fall in love with my comic book collection all over again. Thanks so much.